12.6%. That, Internet, is the current unemployment rate, seasonally adjusted, for the state of Nevada, and this is Power Play. And the reason that 12.6% rate matters so gosh darn much is the president is in Nevada today talking about clean energy use at the United Parcel Service. But what he's really talking about are the electoral college votes that are available there in Nevada and just across the border in Colorado. It's part of a Western strategy that the president has as he looks ahead to try to get to the 270 electoral college votes he needs to win a second term. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the president's immigration proposal with one of his supporters, Congressman Henry Cuellar from the great state of Texas, will be with us. And we will, of course, not fail you, Internet. We will not fail you in this regard. We will talk at length and breadth about the Republican nominating contest, the demolition derby down in Florida. We will deliver on all of those things. Helping us to deliver are two great friends of this show. On the left, fittingly, David Mercer, Democratic strategist and the former Deputy National Finance Director for the Democratic National Committee. And on the right, aptly, is Ford O'Connell. He is the chairman of Civic Forum PAC, all one word, please, and the former presidential campaign advisor. He's a Virginian, a Republican, and knows a lot of stuff. So, gentlemen, question. So the president is out west, and we'll start with you, Ford, because he's trying to cherry pick a few electoral college votes on your team before the Republicans get out of the gate. How successful do you think the president's going to be out west?
I think he could be very successful because right now, if we look at his State of the Union address, he's pandering to three groups. Hispanics,
right out of the box.
just cut to the pandering.
He's pandering to three groups. Hispanics, unions, and those who are suffering from foreclosure. And one thing about Nevada is not only is the unemployment rate high, but the foreclosure rate is almost ungodly.
Yeah, and especially when you go down the interesting swing district in the state of Nevada is all the way down at the bottom part of the state, south of Las Vegas. There's a little corner of basic foreclosure agony. It's one of the worst places in America. I believe that's CD3 down in southern Nevada, and it's just they have suffered there incredibly. And those folks who had been Republican since the district was formed went Democrat in 2008. So the president thinks he can repeat that.
Especially if Romney is the nominee, who said, let the bottom fall out of the housing market. People, it's sort of the invisible hand to Adam Smith. It was meant to happen if you can't stay in your home, and that's not gonna have a receptive audience in Nevada, especially after the president has gone there and laying out his proposals for negotiating ways to refinance homes, whether it's principal or interest or whatever it may be. And that is coming soon, actually, I believe, in a deal with those institutions.
They have a plan.
Yeah.
But they don't like President Obama very well. And there are...
Who's they?
Nevada voters. They've been down on him. They went pretty starchily Republican, except for the difficulty that your team had in the Senate race, 2010 Senate race with Sharon Angle, 2 R's, if you please. But if you look at how Brian Sandoval did running for governor out there, it was a big year for Republicans. And they had a special election in Nevada. But let's talk. The Republicans won. But let's talk about Colorado. That looks less favorable for your team, Ford. They have a lot of Obama voters in the suburbs outside of Denver, and there aren't enough in the red counties to overcome that, is there?
Here's the key again. It's Hispanics.
Okay.
Back to Hispanics. Colorado's Hispanic population is over 20%.
Mm-hmm. And growing fast.
It is. And if the eventual Republican nominee can get 40% of those Hispanics, they can win Colorado. But the key for the
When's the last time that happened?
Bush. 2000.
Right. Yes. And it's been on steady decline.
It has, but
here's nothing steady.
But here's the deal.
Okay, the trend line.
Yeah, no, you're right. But the key here is for the eventual Republican nominee to explain two things. One, free enterprise is rooted in fairness of opportunity, not fairness of outcome.
You're right.
And that's number one. And number two is explaining that the problems to our economy are basically the convoluted tax code.
But do you say that to them on their way back through deportation, actually self-deportation, or do you?
I knew that was coming.
Gentlemen, let's save the Republican field for the third segment. As Chris Wallace would say, don't leave it all in the locker room. But just on this question, when we look at Denver. Yes, it's true that you have a very substantial number of Hispanic voters, but the way that President Obama really won Colorado was putting up big numbers among independents in districts like Jared Polis's and others in upscale, wealthier, better educated suburbs of Denver.
Well, exactly, and that's why I'm coming back to the tax code and explaining that if you can fix that and you can cut the corporate tax rate in half and close the loopholes to the individual and corporate tax, you're going to bring jobs back, versus having the government try to sustain them by taxing the rich and creating a larger safety net, which sounds good in theory, as the president says, but it's unrealistic for long-term sustainable growth. And that's really where you've got to get them. You've got to appeal to their pocket and by touting the economy.
Is there a danger? Is there a danger for the blue team, David, that the president basically... We saw this movie before. He did this in the fall, the movie where he gives a speech to Congress, and then he goes out on the road to sell
which is pretty much standard operating procedure.
No, it's totally SOT, but he just squeezed in an extra one in the fall. He gave a speech to Congress on his jobs bill, and did that and went out. And now he focused that swing state tour mostly on the East. North Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, in some rotation there. Is there a danger for the president that, as much as he wants to demonstrate that he's vital and fighting with Republicans and pushing for his agenda, that if he's seen as just campaigning and always campaigning, that people will tune him out and become fatigued?
I think a perspective to consider is, first off, he's not fighting with Republicans. He's saw every opportunity for them to sit down. And if, look, the picture, it's on video. Boehner walked out of negotiations on the debt ceiling, raising the debt ceiling. Cantor did the same thing. I think that was a lot to bait Obama to maybe push his buttons and start a little tussle there. But he resisted it. What happened when Boehner went back to his team? They tackled him in the huddle on the first vote of the debt ceiling. But so they got their own. Well, the point is, they got their own internal problems. So the president doesn't want to get entangled with that, and he doesn't want that to be a distraction to him managing our resources, our focus and direction in a united way on what he has come up with as solutions to address the challenges and keep the put our foot on the gas pedal to keep us.
Ford, go ahead.
You mean those solutions like Obamacare, those things he didn't tout, the stimulus, all those things that were not mentioned in the State of the Union? Since the day President Obama was inaugurated, he's been running for re-election. He's going to cut the Republicans out. This is what he is going to do. And I understand that the job of a first-term president is to win a second term to pull that out of some.
I think that's
but that at the end of the day is what he's going to do.
I think people make a mistake about President Obama in assuming that's his main agenda, because he actually is on the record with Diane Sawyer saying, if it takes me just being a one-term president, and we don't hear that much from a president or an elected official or any kind of politician. And in fact, I can tell you internally to the party, it's like, so what stake do you have in it? He just wants to uncover every stone in achieving his goal. His goal was to win election, which he did, and he left no stone unturned against a formidable candidate. And in the economic challenges, that is all he is addressing. And he's got to amplify that message because of all of the distorted channels of communication.
Ford, we'll stipulate for the record that you disagree vehemently. Please stipulate Ford's vehement disagreement. But I want to ask you this. For the red team, what looked like some pretty substantial advantages in the East, certainly North Carolina, Virginia, and Florida, look a much harder poll for the president than Democrats thought they would be after the last election. Indiana, also almost certainly out of the president's win column. Does it come down to the question of whether Republicans can pull off a win in Pennsylvania and Ohio? They have to do that.
They have to pull off a win in either Pennsylvania or Ohio. And I think Ohio, from an operative perspective, is a better chance for victory than Pennsylvania, because you have a large African-American population on the east side of the state of Pennsylvania and a high concentrated union population on the western side of the state. So therefore, it's very hard to sort of ground out 2/3 of the state with half the resources. So Pennsylvania will be a little bit tougher, but that doesn't mean it can't be done.
I have a slightly different perspective on that, especially after the defeat of that collective bargaining ballot initiative.
But we know we're going to have to go, and you said collective bargaining, so I will make a...
If the pipeline went through Ohio, it'd be approved.
Keystone XL and Power Play will point this out, that in Ohio, one vote went for for the Democrats, 1 vote went for the Republicans in those ballot initiatives. So Ohio will be, I promise you, the three of us, I imagine, will reconvene to talk about Ohio several times. We're going to take a quick break. These gentlemen have kindly agreed to stay with us. But when we come back, we're going to be joined by Congressman Henry Cuellar from the great state of Texas. So stick around.
Opponents of action are out of excuses. We should be working on comprehensive immigration reform right now. But if election year politics keeps Congress from acting on a comprehensive plan, let's at least agree to stop expelling responsible young people who want to staff our labs, start new businesses, defend this country. Send me a law that gives them the chance to earn their citizenship. I will sign it right away.
That was President Obama in his State of the Union address earlier this week, calling on Congress to pass the DREAM Act or something like it to allow illegal immigrants who came to this country as children to become citizens if they're enrolled in school, a member of the armed forces, and that's what he wants to do. Republicans don't like it. This is Power Play. We are joined still by Ford O'Connell, David Mercer, red team, blue team. They're having a good time. Team. Ain't nothing purple about either of these two people. I can tell you that. But all right, gentlemen, let's talk about this subject in a little more detail. So you have in the United States, as I said, the fastest growing demographic of voters. It is the key. It is the future for either political party. Without a reasonable presence, as Ford said, you've got to get at least 2/5, essentially, or you're going to get wiped out. What is the strategy, briefly, from both of you guys that you think, and take the blue hat off for a second,
sure.
and tell us what strategy the Republicans ought to take in terms of Hispanic outreach? Let's start with you.
I think Congressman Cuellar touched on it with regard to consistency, which at least seemingly so, the candidates now are flying in the face of consistency, and so they haven't gotten grounded. And any support that might be on the sidelines is up for grabs in reaffirming their support of Obama, acknowledging his keeping it on the radar screen in 3 State of the Union addresses, that he did his best among the 4 pieces of legislation that he got through lame duck to have the DREAM Act, but he lost people like Lindsey Graham and McCain, who seem to be now muzzled because they're not out there in front.
You didn't get that all the way off.
Because you had a potential for bipartisanship. So the question is, while the candidates are jockeying for a solid advantage, right, and we see Romney trying to finesse that with, I'm sorry to say, but self-deportation, right? He's trying to refine it, right?
Let me help you out. Sure. I love David to death, but sometimes you
on the Republican side help out?
Yeah. Now here's
Internet. Whenever anybody says I love so-and-so to death, it's about to get.
I'm gonna take a hit on Twitter here, but my party has really hurt themselves with Hispanic outreach. They've done a terrible job. The best way forward, and actually Gingrich is actually starting to outline this, is to tout family values, education, the economy. What the congressman failed to mention is the reason why illegal border crossings is down is because our economy is worse since the Great Depression.
And that's how they got the Cuban vote.
I understand that. So my advice would be this. Take the DREAM Act, strip it down, get rid of the education, because frankly, high school and college diplomas are not worth the paper they're printed on, and do it for the military. If you do that, that will be seen as an olive branch going out there, because what we recognize is, and we're not talking about Hispanics here, we're really talking about Mexican Americans.
Right.
What we recognize is that second generation Mexican Americans, once they're established as a family unit and prosper under the economy, tend to become Republicans.
Tend to, and the opportunity is there. But if they keep getting the signals that now the Republicans are sending, which are...
But that's because family values is the most important thing. That's why the self-deportation
that got lost.
So stupid.
For political posturing, that got lost.
Oh, I agree.
All right. We have lots of time to fight about the next topic.
No, but I'm just all
right, but let's take a break, because when we come back, we're going to talk in depth. Internet, we're going to do it. We're going to give you what you want. The Republican 2012 race, who is most like Ronald Reagan, who who is going to win Florida, and how can Newt Gingrich top his previous debate performances as the CNN contest gets underway tonight. We're going to talk about all of that stuff, so stick around.
Romney to believe that somebody's grandmother is going to be so cut off that she's going to self-deport. I mean, this is an Obama-level fantasy.
Unfortunately for him, these are things he's already spoken out about, and he spoke out about them in favor.
That was, as you well know, Internet, Newt Gingrich, former House Speaker, and Mitt Romney, former Massachusetts governor, in a non-debate debate, attacking and rebutting each other for Univision down in Florida, trying to woo the very substantial Hispanic, predominantly Cuban Republican electorate down in Florida. This is Power Play. Welcome back, and welcome back to our esteemed panel, these esteemed colleagues, David Mercer and Ford O'Connell. Okay, guys, so this is, in terms of sheer viciousness, I have never seen a primary process this absolutely ugly. And I'm including in this now Pat Buchanan versus Bob Dole. I'm including in that because that was not the wicked attacks and personal. Here's the difference. There is no policy being discussed. What is being discussed is who is a liar, who is unethical, who made their money the wrong way, and who got fired from the speakership. Ford, this has to be bad for your team.
Yes and no.
Okay.
It is certainly a bare knuckle brawl, and it's becoming a Force 5 hurricane. There's no question about it. But I do think that the president's going to run a very nasty campaign. And frankly, it's got to be all out there.
So you're saying this is go ahead and
it's only going to get worse for them.
Do full tackle drills in practice.
Absolutely. You've got to go full tilt because that's how the president runs. I'm not a big fan of the president's policies or agenda, but he is the toughest campaigner I've ever seen. And what Romney and Gingrich are doing, is what is necessary. That said, if one of them does jump ahead, the other one's going to have to cut it off.
And we're hearing today, David, that Rick Santorum, there's a murmur, a Santorum murmur out there that maybe the trail is ending for Rick Santorum. Certainly his campaign is allowing that they're not putting up a full fight in Florida, which is a winner-take-all state, very expensive. He trails very badly in the polls down there, getting lapped by both front runners. And yes, they're saying they're going to...
No surprise.
Yes, they say they're going to go forward. As roiled and tumultuous as this Republican race looks right now, we could be near the end, right? If Romney were to win Florida, we could be getting closer to the end.
I think it will depend on margin. I think don't count Ron Paul. This is beyond polls and votes, a hunt for delegates. And Ron Paul might be able to live off the land. Gingrich
he'll be there. He ain't going nowhere.
Gingrich might get, one of Adelson's kids for another $5 billion injection.
But to your point, though, Gingrich cannot afford to lose Florida. It is a winner-take-all proposition. It's not a proportional outcome.
It's not proportional. And also, he's living off the...
He is living off the...
Let's break that down, though. I mean, because... Break it down. Why that's
because pulling into Florida, he was basically burned all of his resources to win South Carolina. He got a cash infusion from casino mogul Sheldon Adelson, and right now he's going to have to use everything because he's being systematically flooded on the air by Mitt Romney.
He got another $5 million.
Yeah, but that he just had to use the $6 million to counteract Romney on the air in Florida. And when he's done in Florida, he will be out of resources.
Right.
So unless Santorum drops out by the end of Florida, there's really no way for Gingrich to move forward.
And don't you
to that point, there's Nevada,
and he won't say
he 3 weeks with one debate, which
you
is his best platform. Well, that's I'm agreeing with you that the geography and the calendar are not in his favor.
No, they're in Romney's favor.
No, they're certainly in Romney's favor, and the Republicans arranged the calendar this year because they were jealous of what Democrats got in 2008, because the Democrats got really jazzed, they got really enthused over Barack versus Hillary. Will he be the first black nominee or the first female nominee?
We had a win-win.
It tickled a lot of Democratic erogenous zones as they went through, and it was like, this is so fun. It was so exciting, and the conventional wisdom is wrong. Do you hold out the possibility that in this case, even though it is so vicious, even though it is so nasty, that what Republicans are doing is having a long overdue debate over what it means to be a conservative and how this goes? The discussion is certainly front and center. The president can hardly get a notice. Isn't there some upside for the Republicans?
I don't think even when they get a nominee that debate among what it means to be a conservative. I mean, if you look at a conservative like Senator Danforth, retired senator from Missouri, the leading sponsor of the Clarence Thomas appointment to the Supreme Court. And he summarizes this field of candidates as an embarrassment. It is saying that they're trying to find what their new identity or brand is.
Well, he ain't exactly Barry Goldwater.
But this is not about
pointing.
But the battle is slightly about conservatives, but this isn't about conservatives. This is about Mitt Romney and not Mitt Romney. Republicans, conservatives do not trust Mitt Romney, even though I think he's going to win, and I'm going to back him if he's a nominee, no question about it. But what everybody would really like to see, okay, is really Newt Romney, which is Newt Gingrich's mouth and brain with Mitt Romney's body and resume
and hair.
That's right.
I have to say, King of Politics agrees with you, Ford. He says, Chris, when the cheerleaders come out at the halftime, the real men put on the metal cleats in the locker room. So he tends to agree that it's time to sharpen the spikes and get sliding. We also want to say hi to Lynn Martin, who says, I usually watch Power Play on my computer at work, but I'm homesick today and watching you on the big screen. You guys are looking fresh. And I want to thank you, Lynn Martin, for bringing fresh back, because fresh is not, Will Smith
showing our age.
Will Smith overdid it. He ruined it for everybody, and I'm glad to see that Lynn Martin is bringing fresh back. All right, I want to ask you this, Ford, as we wind down here. So down in Florida, the vote is essentially my people, the hillbilly firewall, up in the northern part of the state. They're Gingrichy. Then you have the I-4 corridor, which is essentially a lot like any other town, metro area in the country, except it's been racked by foreclosure. Orlando has been a growing city. They experienced a painful bust. It was a very painful bust. And then South Florida, you got the old folks, and you have the Cubanos who vote along fairly predictable lines. When you put this math together, what do you see for the outcome on the 31st?
I see Romney winning for one reason, and that is because of absentee and early voting and the fact he's systematically flooding the areas. That said, though, what I would suggest to Gingrich is follow Rick Scott's map to winning a primary in Florida. Get the northeast corner, and then get the southwest corner, something that we forget about here. And that is also another area where foreclosures are very high. Forget the I-4 corridor. It's actually now Obama country because of the number of Puerto Ricans that have moved into that community. I'm just saying, it is why go for folks.
Okay, we have to go. Sasha just told me we're being naughty. We're having too much fun and talking about this. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. By the way, in the last seconds, the Congress has just failed to disapprove an increase to the debt ceiling. So congratulations, America. You just got your government just got its credit limit bumped up, gentlemen. We thank you for being here. And now, as we like to do every day, we want to leave you with a word from our friend Charles and some other dudes.